I used to work with children. I don't know if you guys know this, but I was a children's pastor for 6 years, 6.5 years. So the gentleman that just came up here a little while ago, I bent down to talk to him. And he goes, "You don't have to bend down to talk to me." And I'm like, "It's okay, I'm used to this." It's like but my knees might give out eventually. I don't know, so we'll see. Yeah, they eventually will. It's okay. It's worth it for all the bending. It's like Arthur, you guys were all in traditional, most people. So yeah, Arthur's preaching on kindness, and you're like, that's kindness. Just bending down and looking little kids in the eyes. So, all right. Okay, well, I think we're at 10:59, and you guys got quiet early. So this is a good group. It's a good group. So if you don't know, first of all, thank you for showing up because I'm here and Scott is not. Because I know you love Scott, and he is amazing. And I just have to tell you, like, can you still hear me? Okay, it changed. So I was like, so let's back up a little bit. So my name is Allyson Johnson. My maiden name is Altamore. I'm very proud of my maiden name because it's actually Altamiri, and it's a Sicilian Italian name, which means I'm really tough. If you know anything about Sicily and Sicilians, we're really tough. And we like our pasta spicy. We like spicy pasta. So anyway, I grew up with a dad who was just the coolest guy ever. He was a worship pastor. That's what he did. My mom was a teacher. And so I grew up Baptist, grew up in the Baptist faith. My dad had actually grown up Methodist. My grandmother was president of Methodist Women in a town called Hearne, Texas. Anybody know where Hearne is? Yeah, Hearne, Texas. And my mom and dad both grew up there, but did not meet because they were 6 years apart. And they didn't meet later until my mom was going to a little church her senior year of high school right outside of Hearne called 5 Points Baptist Church. And my dad, he had grown up Methodist, gone to the Methodist church in Hearne. She had gone to the Baptist church. He ends up playing football at Kilgore as a kicker, did amazingly well there, actually won them a game by kicking this field goal, got picked up by Baylor. And so then he went to Baylor, and he got real involved in his Bible study group and all this stuff at Baylor. And so he kind of moved over to the Baptist faith and Baptist denomination, and basically ended up meeting my mom years later. So, but my dad's family was, okay, this is really fun because my grandma was Irish, and I'm talking she had reddish hair and green eyes. And then my dad's father was Italian, Sicilian Italian, full-blooded. And they were fiery. They were an intense couple. They were the kind of people like Arthur said about, being kind to each other. They were really kind in a very loud way. But they loved each other, and they were married all those years, but they came from that intensity, right, our background. So anyway, that was kind of cool. But my maiden name, Altamore, I've tried to hang on to that, and I struggled with, when God kind of placed me in ministry later in life, I kind of struggled with, do I put that name in there because I'm so proud of it, that Altamiri? But anyway. That's my full name, Allyson Altamore Johnson. And I used to come here to church with my sister and her husband. And we would sit, they knew Robert, Hasley, and Sharon very well. And I actually had gone to dinner with Robert and Sharon many times. But we were not going to church here. We were going to church somewhere else. And I had not been called into ministry, so to speak. Although I'd gone to seminary in my late 20s, and I had all the accreditations, but God just hadn't placed me in ministry. So it's just kind of crazy now. Some of you may know this story, but it's just kind of crazy to me now how God works. It really is. Like, we say it all the time, but then when you really step back, and especially as time passes, and you see these connections and you see what God does, the fact that I sat, so if you're in the pulpit and it's on the side here, right? That side that you're facing to the congregation in the middle, which I always thought was odd. Like, I'd sit there so properly, like everybody can see me. I still do that. But I'd sit there and I'd think, this is such a neat church. Robert is so nice and everyone is so nice. Never did I think I would be here. Like never in a million years. And when the opportunity came up for a role here at St. Andrew, I called my sister and I said, is this a good church? Like, I visited, but I don't know. And she was like, it's a fabulous church. It's a fabulous church. So they actually don't go here anymore, at least not right now. They moved churches because of their kids, which we do sometimes. So anyway, so that's just kind of the story of how I got here and a little bit about my fiery background. I admit it. There's a little bit in there. So, okay, so welcome to Scott's class. We have an announcement about La Hacienda, Thursday, October 24th. So it begins at 6:30. There's a dinner at 7 p.m., $30 per person, right? Dinner and tip. I'll take the tip? No? Okay, I can pay it for you in advance. Margaritas on your own. Cash only to Dawn and Marion today. So La Hacienda, I may go to that. That sounds fun. In fact, Scott invited me. He goes, hey, show up. We'd love to have you, so it'd be a good time. Is there anything on that? Anything else on that I need to say? No? We got it? Okay, good. And then also, we're doing our class missions collection. So this is what Scott sent me to put up there. So that goes on, right, during class? Okay, cool. Yay. You guys got the scoop on what's going on, so. All right. All right, so is there anything else you need to know about me or any question you have? Seriously, before we get into this fun topic. Yes, sir. Sorry? Oh, yeah, Dawn, Marion. Okay. Marion. Okay. So Dawn and then Marion, you're right there towards the back. She's kind of wearing, is that pink or peach? Peach. Okay, pink. Okay, good. All right, any other questions or announcements? Yes. What is your role? Oh, so my role here at the church is women's pastor. Yes, but I tell people women has men in it, so you can talk to me too. Like you're allowed. Although somebody pointed out the other day, it does say, whoa, men. So I don't know. We have to figure that out. That's a good question, though. Yes. I apologize that I didn't say that. Yes.
And then also the red attendance books are going through.
Okay.
Joys and Concern white notebooks are going through.
Okay.
And then if you would like, I'll bring up the joys and concerns to you.
That would be fantastic.
So that you could read them before you do your final prayer.
I will do that.
Okay.
Please remind me or stop me if or just bring them up to me. That's good.
I always stay right there in the back.
Okay.
If you just want to give me a little sign when you're ready, I'll bring them up to you.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah. Or you can just lay them down here while I'm talking. It won't bother me.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. All right, anything else? No? Okay. Good housekeeping stuff. So, hi, Gail. It's so fun to see people I'm starting to know by name. There's 3 of you. It's true. Like, there's so many people in this church, and everybody is so friendly, and they are so kind, and they all say hi, and I'm really trying to learn everybody's names. And I'm not the spring chicken I used to be. You know, I'm kind of an early fall chicken. So, all right. Okay, so what we are going to talk about today, I'm so excited about. I haven't had an opportunity to talk about this to anybody yet. You're my first group, so I apologize if it doesn't go as well as it should, but I think it's going to be good. The pastor, well, let me back up. I went to seminary in the early 90s, graduated with 2 master's degrees from Southwestern. I was gung-ho, I'm going into ministry. And God said, no, you're not today. I ended up in the corporate world, an amazing corporate job. I now know why I did that, because I learned so much. And I met my husband, because somebody that I worked with introduced me to my husband and got us connected. From there, we started our family. My youngest had some problems, some difficulties, so I decided to stay home. And I was in a really great job. I was in a consulting firm. I was working with IBM, BMC software. I was doing tech recruiting, stuff that you wouldn't think the ministry background prepared you for, which it didn't. But I did a lot of training and HR stuff and worked with people on site. And it was really, really good experience because I learned about working with like engineers. My husband's an engineer, so I can say this. Working with engineers, software people, computer people, their mindset was very different from mine as a minister and as a person who just talks to anybody and everybody. And so I learned a lot about different personalities. One of my master's degrees is in counseling, psychology. So I do love studying personalities in people. So anyway, I did that for a little while, and then I went into, I owned my own business. After we moved up here to Plano, I got bored, started my own business while I was having my second child. Ran that for 10 years. I would speak at conferences. I taught Bible study over at Bent Tree Bible. I was still doing things in the ministry and perpetuating that, just not getting paid for it, which I'm still not getting paid for it. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Now, don't you tell anybody that here. What happens in Scott's class stays in Scott's class, okay? So anyway, we end up moving to Colorado because of my husband's job to Fort Collins. If anybody knows where Fort Collins is, northern Colorado, beautiful city, CSU, low crime rate. I will say there are things I miss about it. But anyway, we ended up moving up there, and the son of the children's pastor and my daughter became really good friends at this church called Timberline Church. And Timberline is the largest church in northern Colorado. And just to tell you the size of it, which is surprising, because we're not in the Bible Belt up there, right? Their membership is 6,000. Their orbital membership, because of time of year that people come in as tourists and all that, is 10,000. That's really good for a Colorado church. Like, that's pretty amazing, not being in the Bible Belt. So we had an incredible staff leadership. The children's pastor by the name of Donnie Abbott, he and I would have these conversations because our kids are hanging out together and they'd become best friends, run around going to camp. Well, somewhere in there, I had told him I'd gone to seminary, all that. Well, he apparently never forgot that. So one day I get a call and he says, "Why don't you come see us at the church? I need to talk to you about something." And I'm thinking, oh, Lord, what did my kid do? What'd they do now? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I have always been the kind of parent. Unfortunately, I'm not the glasses half full person when it comes to my kids. I am typically the glasses half empty, like, oh, Lord, what'd they do? So I get there, and we meet in the cafe, the coffee shop, and he says, "Hey, you have a background from seminary. Some of our other pastors in certain areas don't even have that. And you have this background. I'd like to talk to you about coming to our church and working at our church." Well, at that time, I had left the business I owned here in Texas, so I just threw myself into volunteering. Well, what was really cool about that is that volunteering led to a position in the Poudre. It's Poudre. It is Poudre in French, but northern Coloradoans don't know how to speak French, so they call it Poudre. And that is a funny name. I thought it was Pooter. I literally thought that was how you spelled it. And I get up there and I'm like, "So what's up with this Poudre stuff?" And they're like, and then I said, "Oh, Poudre," and they looked at me like I was crazy. So anyway, I did the volunteer database for the school district. That's a lot of people and a lot of volunteer work. Well, then I got involved with the district advisory board, which is a huge thing. That school district, I tell you, it's probably one of the most efficient school districts I've ever seen, the way it was run. Financially, incredibly high integrity. It was a really great system. So I'm really glad I got to see that. In that process, I met a state senator, and I got to work with him on education initiatives. So that was a really cool experience. So God taking me through all of this And then about 2 years before I turned 50, I know, isn't that shocking? You thought I was like 32, didn't you? You really did. I know. But 2 years before I turned 50, God goes, you know what? I gave you this foundation. I gave you all this foundation. I taught you how to work with people. I taught you how to think logically, rationally. I taught you how to negotiate. I taught you how to do all these things. And now I want you to bring it to my church. And that's a pretty cool thing. It's a pretty cool thing. And I can tell you right now, not this church. This is an amazing church. But there's a lot of churches out there right now that need people that have skills. I think we're seeing that in our newspapers. So Donnie says to me, you have all this background, you have all this great skill. I want to put you in children's. Really? I was like, I'm going to be a pastor. I'm going to do this, women's maybe. I want you to be in children's. And not only children's, preschool. Children's. So I immediately said no. I did. I'm not going to lie. I was like, Lord, I love you, and I'll say yes to you, except for this one. Not this one. So anyway, I did go into preschool there. I did work as the preschool director, and it was the best yes, besides my husband, that I ever said, because it just turned out to be amazing, and I learned so much. And Donnie, I've never seen a man, he's one of those pastors, his discernment is incredible. Like, have you ever known somebody that just reads people really well? Like, they just read them really well, and you're just like, man, that is a skill. That's a unique skill. He was like that. Like, somebody would walk in for a meeting with us, and he would say, I can just tell they're struggling with such and such, and we need to be praying for them, or they're going to be back here with this. And he wasn't a gossiper. It wasn't anything like that. It was just simply he had the gift of discernment. And I have prayed ever since I've gotten to know him that I would have that gift. And God has slowly let that happen some. He really has. But anyway, Donnie gave me a lot of wisdom, and he supported me wholeheartedly. Always supported me. Well, he wrote this book. He wrote this book, Christ in the Storm. So it is available on Amazon, and he was like, you promote the heck out of it. He did say that because that's Donnie. He's that kind of a guy. But that's not the point. The point's not for you to buy the book. But I do want you to know that he did write this book. And this is where I kind of got the idea because what was fascinating is he wrote about this painting and our faith in the midst of storm. But what's fascinating about the story is you're going to find that there was an art heist involved. I love mystery. Does anybody else love mystery? Like, I love mystery. So every time I hear about a heist or, I don't know, a missing person even, something, and they just have never known what happened to them, I've just always found that to be fascinating. What I do find relief with is that we will know someday. Amen? We're going to know someday what happened to all this stuff. But anyway, so this is the book that it came from, Christ in the Storm, Keeping Faith in the Face of Unknown, a book by Donnie Abbott. All right, so this is the painting. This is a painting by Rembrandt. It is his only seascape. Only seascape. It was painted in 1633, and the painting shows the physical and spiritual struggles that we would have in this world. And we're going to go more into what's present in this. By the way, if you count the number of people in there outside of Jesus, there's 13. Do you know why? Does anyone know? What? No. Rembrandt painted himself in the scene. It was a very typical thing for large scapes like this for the artist to put themselves in there. And so Rembrandt actually painted himself in the scene. So there is a little story to this too, the background. Rembrandt knew what it meant to struggle, to have loss. Rembrandt lost his wife and 3 of his 4 children all within 7 years, which a lot of people don't know that about him. And the painting, of course, what's so great, you see the shades of the light, the dark, and we're going to talk about that in a little while. You see the struggle that's going on. And this is the Sea of Galilee, which is not huge. It's not really that big. I've got a map. I have 2 maps. That's right. That's right. I need to be invited back, so I did maps. But here's the kicker. This has not been seen for 30 years. People know this story a little bit? Yeah, it's a fascinating story. There is no trace of this painting for 30 years. That is because it was housed at this museum, which is the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. Has anyone been there? You have? Is it this beautiful in person? It's empty. Yeah, it's empty. Yeah, that's what all the pictures I've seen. Yeah, it's beautiful. This is their lobby, like their lobby and kind of main entry area. Isn't that beautiful? But here's the thing. So Isabel Stewart Gardner acquired this painting in 1898 and opened her museum in Boston in 1901. Okay, so get the time frame. We've got a painting that was painted in 1633. It's acquired in 1898 and opens in a museum in 1901 in Boston. The museum is home to over 7,500 paintings, sculptures, and other significant pieces of history, including 1,500 rare books, 7,000 archival objects from the ancient, medieval, Renaissance, and 19th century times. And this is all from her. The majority of this is her collection, which is really incredible. So let's kind of get to what happens here. A map. I even put the map. I can spell. Yay. Okay, so here we go. 2 men show up at the museum on March 18, 1990. They are dressed as police officers. They knock on the door, and the security guard comes, answers the door, and they say, "We're here to investigate a disturbance." Well, the security guard, he didn't report anything. There is one other guy present, another guard. So there's 2 guards. That's it. That's the only people in the museum are these 2 guards. And some security guards, not like ours at St. Andrew are very well trained and amazing. They're kind of rough around the edges, you know. So anyway, they tell the security guard that answers the door that they're there for a disturbance, but then in conversation, they tell him there is a warrant for your arrest. Well, the story is this guy was kind of maybe smoking some stuff he shouldn't be smoking now and then, doing some things he shouldn't be doing. So, and this was back in 1990, right? So he wouldn't have, he could have been in trouble for this. So they get in the door. This security guard's name is Richard Abath. And they get in the door. They get him and his partner away from the panic button. And then they basically let them know this is a robbery. And so these guys have nothing. They don't have any backup. They don't have any way to fight this. So basically, they take them down to the basement and they tie them up. In the next 81 minutes, as you see up here, these thieves steal $500 million worth of art. $500 million. They knew what they were doing. So as you see on here, they come in, and this map is actually really cool. You can find this online. It basically shows you where they started down here in this area, and they came in, they loop around, they go into the Dutch room, which that was the famous room that the Rembrandt painting was in. They go into the Dutch room. They take 2 paintings out that are they're kind of like one's over here, one's over here. There's chairs in front. There's like a centerpiece thing between them. They take those two out, or at least one of them out. One of them heads over here to the short gallery, gets some things out, and then they proceed from there and come back out through those doors that they entered into. And this shows the timing, everything. So we have all these details, right? We have all these details. It's never been solved. They thought Richard Abath was a part of it, the security guard, and he even, I think was brought in and investigated, but they couldn't link him. They couldn't link him to this. So we have 500 million of art in this amazing museum, and it's now gone. And for 30 years, thank you, for 30 years, we have never seen it. It's kind of sad. And one of those was Rembrandt's Ceasing. So digitally, we can still see it, of course. So one of the things, as we transition from this crazy story, that kind of sets up a really interesting dialogue for us because of the heist, and it's been in the news. I love unsolved mysteries. So there's, on our Samsung TV, there's they're live TV. A lot of them are channels that are old channels that used to be around, and they play older shows. And there's one that literally plays unsolved mysteries. I think it's 2 or 3 days a week. They just play them all day long. And when I put my channel to that, so that when I sit down on the bed or come in the room for a little while, if I turn on the TV, it goes to that channel. I get sucked in so much. I just do. I get so sucked in. And I'm like, I need to work on this lesson, or I need to do this. And then all of a sudden, 2 hours later, I'm watching Robert Hatch. Is that right? Is that his name? Yeah, Robert Hatch. And talk about unsolved mysteries. And it's and then of course I'm sitting there, and all it does is make it worse on me, because some of these were filmed, in the 80s or early 90s? And I'm like, did they solve it? Is there any way to find out if these were solved today? So I do love these unsolved mysteries. Okay, so going back to the painting. Oh, sorry, this is the aftermath. I did want to show you that. So that's the one you were talking about, right? So this one up here in this corner, so that's what's left of where the Rembrandt was. And then over back here too, you see that. These are some of the things that were laying around the room. And then you see these empty. That's just sad. And I believe they still have them all sitting there empty, right? They're just hoping to see them returned. It was in 1990. Let's see, the exact date was March 18th. March 18, 1990. So one of the things, though, about this painting that I find interesting is that when you really start looking at it, there's this. Do you guys see the contrast of the light and the dark and all of that? Okay. So have you guys ever heard of Visio Lectio? Have you heard of that? Yeah. So there is also a practice called Visio Divina. And Visio Divina is, or divine seeing. It's not some it sounds kind of funny, but it's not some weird practice or anything out there. All it is simply a prayer meditation on something, and then just seeing kind of what the Holy Spirit gives to you, kind of like what God shows you through it. But it's related to Lectia Divina, which is where a person practices the discipline of meditating or praying. A lot of monks and nuns, a lot of pastors, preachers, will practice this Lectio Divina, where you read a part of Scripture, and then you just kind of keep focusing on that, and you kind of look at the words and pull out the words, and what is God trying to say to me? It's actually a really powerful practice. In a world of busyness, it's an incredible art that we've lost. And also Visio Divina, which is the divine seeing, the counterpart to lectio, is viewing something like a painting and focusing on that. Now, we're not stating that Rembrandt was a man of God. We're just simply, but most of us know, like during the art world time where Renaissance, all of that was very big, most people knew the scriptures. That was a big, big part of life, was knowing the Word of God, knowing scriptures. And so they painted a lot of their art based on what they knew within themselves, right? Which was scripture, and which was being taught by the church. And the church was a very large, powerful entity. So this Visio Divina allows us to kind of focus on this piece of art and have prayer and meditation over it, and then allow the fullness and representation of what God wanted us to see through it. So there's a quote on this that I wanted to read to you. Okay, I marked so many things and I didn't read. Okay, there we go. It's the idea of seeing God through that which is created and invites us to see deeply beyond first and second impressions. So how many of you have gone to an art museum? Most of you. I mean, I would assume most of the people in this room have done that. It's real easy to see. I remember when Monet came here, or actually it was in Denver. We were living in Colorado. And, you know, it's real easy to stop and see water lilies, right? And feel something. But when you really sit down and take the time to focus on a piece of art on the wall, it's amazing what more can kind of come to you. The feelings, the thoughts. And I know I do. I always think, like, where were they when they painted this? You know, what were they really doing? You know, because we have this grandeur, right, of artists, like the Renaissance artists and Rembrandt and Monet and all these people. And they probably had on some really cruddy shirt and paint all on them, and really, but they were inspired. And they were inspired to inspire us. And that's just a really neat thought. And so I encourage you, the next time you're in front of a piece of art, allow the artist to inspire you. Because that was their purpose. That was their purpose, to inspire you. It invites us to be seen, addressed, surprised, and transformed by God, who is never limited or tied to any image, but he speaks through them. So God speaks through this image. All right, so let's go to the actual lesson in Matthew on this, and let's look at what the painting, that's what I just read to you. See, I didn't have to look it up in my book. I forgot I even write that. Isn't that good? I'll let you read that real quick. Okay, but in Matthew 8, we have the story, Matthew 8, 23 through 27. We have the story of the disciples in the boat with Jesus. And you may have heard this story, I don't know how many times. You probably heard a lot of times. But look at it, just listen to it and see what you get. Then he got into the boat, and his disciples followed him. Without warning, a furious storm came upon the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him, saying, "Lord, save us, we are going to drown." He replied, "You of little faith, why are you so afraid?" Then he got up, rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. The men were amazed and asked, "What kind of man is this? Even the winds and the waves obey him." This is a map, another one, map 2, of the Sea of Galilee. So right up there at the top, that is the Sea of Galilee. You have the Jordan River, then you have the Dead Sea. Nazareth is a little bit closer up there to Galilee. You see Samaria, Jericho, you have a few, Jerusalem. So that's what it looks like on a map. This is what it looks like from the hills nearby. It's large, but we go out to, does anybody know Richland Chambers Lake? We have a little lot out there, and we go out there. We have some jet skis. We go right around, and it's pretty big, right? It's a pretty big lake. In fact, if we have a rough, windy day on that lake, it's hard to ride around on the jet skis because I don't know if you know this, but the more narrow a lake is, right, the less it's better. I used to water ski. I grew up water skiing. I lived in the hill country for a little while on Lake LBJ, so I used to water ski, and I'm a big water sports person. And so the Lake Whitney, for example, is a great lake to ski on because it has narrow parts, and if you get on that, it's like glass. It's just beautiful. This lake, not so much. And the Sea of Galilee would have been like that. The wider you are, the more open space you have, the more the winds can cause this turbulence. So this would have gotten pretty rough. I mean, if they had a storm come up, they would have seen a lot of rough water. Okay, so going back to the story here, though, Matthew, Mark, and Luke all have this story. John does not. John has a story of a storm, but it's not this one. It's a different story. So when we go to Mark 4, 35 through 41. Now I'm going to read these two. You're hearing the same verse, but I want you to understand a little bit about the way each person writes it, and then we'll go back and look at that. That day, when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along, just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. What did we know about Jesus sleeping in the first one? Did we know it was the stern? No. Did we know it was a cushion? It's interesting when we read different accounts, different perspectives, what attention they paid to detail. I feel like Mark could have had a little engineer in him. Because I know my husband. He's a global defense guy, and he works with Raytheon and L3 Harris and all these guys, and they get particular. They get defined on what they're doing. They're going to tell you the details. So Mark is getting closer there. A furious squall, Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" In the first one, "Lord, save us. We're going to drown." "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." He got up and rebuked the winds and waves, and it was completely calm. They don't even tell us what he said in Matthew. "Quiet, be still." Boy, have I said those words to my kids. I think I got them. Can I now say officially I got them out of the Bible? Is that okay? Okay. Then the wind died down and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" In Matthew, "You of little faith, why are you so afraid?" They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the winds and waves obey him." Okay, last one. This is Luke. I love Luke. I taught Luke as a Bible study at my last church last spring before I accepted the job to come here. And I love Luke. And there are some Luke scholars out there that are amazing to listen to. And Luke, as we all know, whoever wrote the book of Luke wrote it with an education, right? They had a higher level of education. So it's really interesting, to see another perspective here. So here we go. Luke 8:22. One day Jesus said to his disciples, "Let's go over to the other side of the lake." So they got into a boat and set out. As they sailed, he fell asleep. Doesn't tell you, but that's interesting. They don't tell us anything else about that. A squall came down on the lake so that the boat was being swamped, and they were in great danger. The disciples went and woke him, saying, Master, Master, we are going to drown. Okay, Lord, save us, we're going to drown. Teacher, don't you care if we drown? Master, Master, we're going to drown. Do you not find that a little interesting? You know what's great about this? None of them are wrong. It's our perspective on Jesus. We all have a different perspective, and he wants us to come to him with that perspective. The person next to you does not have to agree with you on how they approach Jesus. They do not. It's never been biblical. That's never been stated that you and I have to approach Jesus the exact same way. Isn't that cool? Because I know I've been a few places in my life where I felt like people thought I had to do it the way they did it, or it was wrong. I don't know about some of you, but that's just absolutely not true. He got up and rebuked the wind and the raging waters. The storm subsided and all was calm. Where is your faith? He asked his disciples. In fear and amazement, they asked one another, Who is this? He commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him. So all of these are different personal rememberings, accounts of how it was said or how it was passed along. But all are important for us to hear. One of them is faith. Where is your faith? You of little faith, Matthew. Do you still have no faith, Mark? Where is your faith, Luke? Jesus asked them all the same question. Different ways, but he asked them all the same question. Now, I say this today not as a rebuke of where is your faith. I don't know where your faith is. No one can know that. And let me say, as I've gotten hopefully more mature in my life, I've realized no one can tell me my faith. No one can tell me my faith, and don't let them. Your faith is your faith, and you own it, and it is yours. And wherever you are in that faith, wherever you're walking right now, that's for you. And it may feel like you're struggling, and it may feel like you're on top of a mountain, and that is okay. And you need to hear that over and over and over. It's okay. I'm in the same spot. You think because I have a title of pastor, woo, I'm just sailing through life with God? I don't have a kid that never got in trouble at school for doing things she shouldn't have done, or, having a kid that tells me at 16 I don't believe in God. No, I've had all those things. You don't think we haven't had marital discord or ups and downs? And, most of ours is over remodeling because my husband likes to remodel. But anyway, we'll talk about that another time. If any of you have that problem, we can start a remodeling care group if anybody needs it, because I'm with you. But the painting shows this contrast between chaos and calmness, right? So it shows this, the men are at the front of the boat. They're fighting the sea frantically. You see that? They're pulling on the sails. And there's like these 5 guys up here at the front. And they've all got the sails going, and they're pulling. And most of them, like if they're looking up, they're looking at the sail. Some of them are just looking down. And you notice there's a light above them? They don't see the light. They don't see the light at all because they're so focused on the struggle. How often do we do that? We don't focus on the light. We don't focus on the chance we're getting out of this. And guess what that light means? You know what that light means? Guess? The storm is about to break. Rembrandt painted that with the fact that the storm was about to break. but they couldn't see it because they were so caught up in the struggle. I am not going to make it through this. I am going to die. This is killing me. I cannot do this. I don't care if you're a little kid that's 6, somebody took your toy and you're crying and it's the end of the world, or if you're my mom's age at 89 and you didn't find the right dress to wear to my nephew's wedding this weekend. The struggle is real. And it's as real to you in that moment for what you don't have. But if you're struggling with it and you're fighting it all the time, you don't see the light. So there's 2 distinct scenes, one of struggle and one of peace. So look at the painting closer. Okay, this is fantastic. Look at this right here. This man right here, he has his head over the boat. We know what that means. I don't know about you guys. I have been there in that struggle. I'm admitting it as a pastor a few times in college. Okay? It happens. But he was really struggling. I actually did struggle on a boat one time. When I was in middle school, I had this great teacher, Miss Fatasic, and she was amazing. She was one of those ladies, her hair was all spiky, and she wore those big bohemian skirts. And she'd come in, and she was just full of life, and she was like, all right, kiddos, this is what we're doing today. We're dissecting an earthworm. All right, everybody get ready. We're just like, ugh, that just sounds gross. But she was so fun to be around. So she took us every year on a field trip. Well, you got to go if you were like 8th grade. So my 8th grade year, I signed up. And you know where we went? This was the coolest thing. We go down to the Texas coast. We went to Texas A&M Galveston, and we checked out the sea turtles. And we got to see, it was the time we went was when they were actually pretty present. And so we got to see them and see the sand and everything they dug into. And that was so fun. And then they rented a boat and took us out to an oil rig. Is that not the wildest thing? You know, I forget I did that all the time. I'll have somebody say, what's the craziest thing you've done? And my husband and I scuba dive. So I'm like, oh, I went scuba diving, 100 feet along the Cozumel wall. I totally forget about this oil rig. Like, that's kind of a big deal, isn't it? But I will tell you, the boat ride home was not good. Not good. I was very sick. I was fine getting out there, but then waves crashing all around you for a while and then coming back, because it takes a while to get out to those things. They're a little while out there. So anyway, so we see the man with his head over the boat. We see 5 men struggling with the sails. One is fearful and unmoving. You see one with his hand on the oar back here towards the back, but just resigned to the situation. You see 2 talking and grabbing at Jesus to do something, and you see another resigned. Like over here, this guy, I'm not supposed to walk out of the light, but okay, that guy. He's resigned, and he's not doing anything. And then just heads down. However, and there is one looking out to the audience, and that is the one people believe to be Rembrandt. Do you see kind of the guy? It's kind of hard to see his face. I'm sorry, these screens aren't real conducive to this, but he's kind of hairy. It looks like he has bluish and a little brown thing on his hat. They think that's Rembrandt, who's looking out to the audience. But there is one single man, and he's hidden a little. He's right here, below the guy in gray, right there. That is a person. What do you think he's doing? He's praying. There's one single man in prayer, knelt with hands together towards Jesus in prayer. The men that are fighting with the sails, what they don't see in their struggle and with their back to the clouds or their face down and focused on the fight is that the storm is about to break, as I said earlier. It's about to be calm, and all of their fury in their fight is going to cease. But they can't see it. Jesus is painted in the dark portion. So why? Why is Jesus in the dark and not in the light? See, this is this Visio Divina that I'm talking about. You look at it, you start kind of processing, what is the Holy Spirit saying to me? Maybe it's just a reminder that Jesus is always with us, especially in the darkest moments of our lives. In the darkness of tragedy, in the darkness of loss, pain, brokenness, ruin, Jesus is with us. Matthew 8 is a packed chapter. When you read Matthew 8 as a whole chapter, it is completely packed. Jesus is busy. He's healing, he's busy traveling, he's busy teaching, and this moment on the Sea of Galilee is put in there to allow you to see the power he has over the elements. All of the other things in there don't point to this level of power and command. This is a moment where God shines, completely shines, with the power over the elements. He can command creation itself and keep the storms at bay. So, in kind of closing up on some of this, I remember my firstborn, Alexa. A lot of you haven't met her. I wish you would. She was born an old soul. Anybody know people like that, kind of born an old soul? She was mature, smart. Everybody who meets Alexa likes her. I mean, I get emotional because I am so thankful to God. I don't know why I deserved her. I don't think I did, but he put her in my life. She's just a beautiful soul. And I always say I think God gave us the struggle for her to become who she needed to be very young, because she struggled young. So when she was probably about 3 or 4 months old, she got rotavirus. And we didn't have a vaccine for rotavirus then. So you get rotavirus, and basically it's throwing up and the other way too, and it's nonstop. And you think about it, when you're 11 pounds, it doesn't take long, right? Doesn't take long. So she was very sick. I'd gone to the doctor. We were on the verge of putting her in the hospital. And I was at wit's end. You know, I thought, why would you give me this baby for it to be this hard? And maybe even take her. Like, she was really sick. And we didn't know what to do. And I called my mom, because my mom is my go-to, has always been most of my life. And I called my mom. And my mom's one of those women, I have to say, side note, that she does think she knows everything. So that too is really funny, because she doesn't always know everything, but she thinks she does, so we all believe it. Like, we're just, yes, whatever you say. But in this case, she knew what to do. So as I say, my mom's not a doctor, but she plays one on TV. So I say that too to people. I say, I'm not really a pastor, I just play one on TV. But no, I am a pastor. So I really am. So anyway, my mom says, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to call your doctor, from Dr. Thompson, from when you were a baby, because he's one of the best doctors I've ever known. So she calls Dr. Thompson, gets him on the phone, and he says, hey, does she have any rice? I wonder if anybody knows where I'm going with this. Does she have any rice? And my mom said, well, I'm sure she does. And he said, well, I'll tell you what she needs to do. Boil the rice. Don't let it absorb all the water. Drain the water out. Let it cool. Put it in a baby bottle. Add a little sweetener or something to it, or mix it with a certain juice. I don't remember exactly what it was at the time. And tell her to give it to her daughter to drink. Now, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, really, Mom? This is his answer. Well, what you don't realize about Dr. Thompson was he was very active in our church, and he was a really fine Christian man. He had gone on tons of mission trips around the world as a medical doctor. And he had seen in villages and all these places cool things they did, right? to heal people because they didn't have modern medicine. And he saw things work. So basically, this is what happens when you do rice water, right? The rice water will prevent dehydration, number one. The starch in it will bind the stools, and it will increase your ability to absorb electrolytes. Did you know that? Rice water. I mean, we all know rice is what's sent to foreign countries, and there's a reason for that because of how it feeds you in certain ways. But the rice water even has an element to it that is healing. Within hours of my daughter being hospitalized with little tubes all over that precious body, the throwing up and everything else stopped. And she was on the road to recovery. I kept my eyes on who I knew could help me in that moment. I didn't lose sight of who I could call. My mom, and then my mom called who she knew could help her. I say this because we are to keep our eyes on Jesus. But just like in the book of Jeremiah, where God says, hey, I gave you Gilead. There is balm in Gilead. That is a reference to the doctors and the physicians and the people that were in Gilead who could help the people. And there were Christian people sitting there saying, I wouldn't say Christians per se, but there were believers at that time who were sitting there saying, we're just going to sit here and trust God to take care of us. He's going to do it. He'll heal us. He'll do it. God told Jeremiah to tell the people, I gave you doctors. I gave them the skill. I gave them the ability. When we are facing storms, yes, God can take care of us. Jesus can take care of us, of course. That's a given. But God also gave us people with great skills who love us, who listen to us, who are there for us. Learn to depend on those that God has put in your life. Learn to know who to look to. It's a hard skill. Nobody wants to say, I have a problem. Nobody wants to say, I need to depend on somebody. Nobody wants to say, I'm hurting. I'm broken. And especially those of us who have worked so hard, like myself, with 2 master's degrees and educational background here and the work I did at the Senate and all this stuff. Like, I don't want to say I can't do things, but I can't. I cannot do it all. I can't. And I'm at my worst when I'm trying to do it all by myself. And I won't depend on someone, and I won't let them help me. It's no different for the disciples on the boat with Jesus. God had provided himself in a human form with control of all things elemental to save them. To calm the storm, to calm their fears, they only had to ask for help and look to him. You only have to look to God and those that he has put in your path to find help. There is no real fear when you know where to look and who to look at. There's only calm. There's only peace. There's only the beauty of the grace and providence of God. So I'm going to pray, and then I'm going to say joys and concerns, okay? And then we'll go to that. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for who you are. We thank you for your giving us someone in human form that we can lay our eyes on, that we can see sitting next to us on a park bench, because he did those things. He walked with us. He rode in the boat with us. He loved us. He would hold our hand. He would pat the head of a child. We know what you look like because of your gift in Jesus. But we also know what you look like because of your gift of those who are created your image right around us. May we lean into them for help. May we lean into them. And if we don't need the help, maybe we're willing to help them. And maybe we're willing to ask, do you need help? What can I do for you? It may be something very small, maybe something very big. And the biggest thing we can do is just pray and love them. Lord, I just thank you for this group. I thank you for their hearts, their minds, their spirits and soul. You can feel it. May they carry who you are within them every day and show that to a world that is so desperately looking and trying to figure out, who do I look at? Who will help me? We ask it in your name, Heavenly Father. Amen. All right, so joys and concerns. So we have prayers for Dorothy. Let me make sure I can read names in writing. Dorothy Chairs, Nancy Atkin, and Steve Chenault as they deal with health issues. Prayers for Lidu as she deals with ovarian cancer. Please pray for our country and a legitimate election. We have one unnamed prayer. And then we also have a friend of ours, Brenda, is starting retirement, selling her home, and moving back to her family home. She has an adopted son who spends all her money and doesn't have boundaries. Yep. My fear for the future. Pray for her discernment and wisdom to manage her son. Amen. We all need that. So, all right. Is there anything else that you guys go over? Yes. I'm sorry, what? Hold the book? Yeah. So I only went into the first part of the book, which is about kind of the heist and why Donnie wrote this book. I'll have it here if you want to take a picture of it. It's called Christ in the Storm, Donnie Abbott. Let me go back to this back here. Sorry, don't want to give you whiplash eyelash as we go through that. Okay, based on the book by Donnie Abbott, and I don't think he makes a lot of money off of this. It's not that kind of a thing, but they are on Amazon, and he loves this painting. He's very enthralled by it, and that's what inspired him to write this. So anyway, thank you so much. You guys have been great. You welcomed me with loving arms. Thank you. Yes. Oh, yeah.
Traditional service at
Oh,
9:30.
good.
And you might
Okay.
talk to Taylor Davis about that
I
because
will.
he's the instigator, so to speak, of
I
that
will.
practice.
Not
in our
having been
service.
here that long and
Yeah.
growing up in the Baptist church, they don't really
I
do
wouldn't
that.
see that in the
No,
Baptist
they
church,
don't
no.
do that. And so it's a practice I came into very, like when I first started ministry with Donnie. So, yeah. Did you go to Baylor?
No, my grandson goes there.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they had a good
It
win.
was a good day yesterday.
Good day
for Baylor.
yesterday. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
okay?
No, I'm fine. I don't want to break it. I'm going to get in trouble. No,
thank you.
I am. Arthur said, "Yeah, we're not talking about football today. We're being kind." But
Yeah,
I'm
well,
like,
Becky
Baylor
was,
won.
Becky was happy.
Yeah.
So I'm Alan Thomas.
Hi, Alan. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I was just going to tell you. So you're a diver, and you're talking about the lifeline.
Yes.
That's one of the coolest dogs are all blue. If
Oh,
you
yeah?
Actually, when the blue water comes in,
Yes.
you get a chance.
Okay. That's awesome. No,
Yeah.
we are going to. I haven't had a vacation in a year, and Matt hasn't either. Neither one of us, because I was working and I came here. So we're going to Barbados on October 28th, and we're diving there. So we're really excited. Yeah.
I've been a diver since I was 12. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, our oldest is a diver. She got certified at A&M, but she was diving, yeah, I guess she started college. But the other two kids were resort certified last time we went to Cozumel, and we need to get them fully certified.
Yep.
But they all love